Hello, Bharti sir. Hello.
Yes, sir.
May I start this program?
All resource persons and inaugurator are online.
Yes.
They are joined.
Am I audible? Professor Dr. Mahsa Moshfegyan, madam.
Yeah, good morning. You are.
Okay. Thank you, madam. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Professor Dr. Suresh, sir. Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir. Very well. Good
Thank
morning.
you.
Good morning, sir.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. one and all.
Welcome.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am.
May I audible? Miss Neha Mishra, madam.
Yes, sir, you are audible. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome. So, with the grand permission of our principal, Dr. Dept, sir, may I start, sir?
Yes, sir, please.
A very good morning to one and all. Today, MSc Mandals, Art, Commerce and Science College, Kille Darur, District Bid, Maharashtra State, affiliated to Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar Marathwada University, Aurangabad, is organized a one-day international webinar on recent trends in gender studies. On this occasion, we have the keynote speaker and inaugurator of this international webinar, Professor Dr. Mahsa Moshfegyan, Professor, Salahdin University, Erbil, Kurdestan, Iraq. The resource person for this event is Professor Dr. Suresh, who is joined from Mumbai School of Economics and Public Policy, Mumbai University, Mumbai. With another resource person, Miss Neha Mishra, ma'am, who is joined from Head Department of Sociology, Government College, Daman, Union Territory of Dadra, Nagar, Haveli, Diu and Daman. Our beloved principal, Professor Deepak Bharti, the participants who are joined from India as well as other countries from the world. On this occasion, I welcome to one and all. For this function, our patron, Honorable Prakash Dada Solanke Sahib, ex-minister and MLA and President of Marathwada Shikshan Prasarak Mandal, Aurangabad. I also welcome Honorable Satish Babu Chavan, MLC, Secretary of MSc Mandal, Aurangabad, Honorable Jaising Bhaiya Solanke, Chief CDC, and member of Executive Council, Marathwada Shikshan Prasarak Mandal, Honorable Lobaji Chavan Sahib, Honorable Jai Singh Bhaiya, Ajay Singh Dikhat, Honorable Indrajit Jadhav sir, Honorable Ram Singare. I welcome to all these dignitaries on this occasion. I also welcome our Vice Principal, Mr. M.A. Jogde, and Convener, Mr. G.D. Bavaskar. Now, I request the Principal, Dr. Deepak Bharti sir, to give an introductory speech of this one-day international webinar. Over to Dr. Deepak Bharti sir.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
Okay, thank you. Very pleasant morning to one and all. Myself, Deepak Bharti, Professor in Economics and in charge principal of MSP Mandals, Arts, Commerce and Science College, Dadra. I welcome you all participants and dignitaries from India and abroad countries on this online interdisciplinary international webinar. We are here for the international interdisciplinary webinar on recent trends in gender studies. I heartily welcome to President of Marathwada Shikshan Prasarak Mandal, Honorable Prakash Dada Solanki Sahib, MLA and ex-State Minister of Maharashtra. Also, I heartily welcome Honorable Sri Satish Babu Chavan Sahib, MLC and Secretary Marathwada Shikshan Prasarak Mandal, Aurangabad, for continuous support and inspiration for organization of such events. I also welcome to Honorable Jai Singh Bhaiya Solanki Sahib, Chief Member, College Development Committee and Member of Executive Council of Marathwada Shikshan Prasarak Mandal, Aurangabad, for their continuous support and inspiration. I also welcome to Honorable all CDC members. They always inspire all the faculties of institution for take efforts to different type of activities. I also welcome today's webinar's inaugurator and keynote speaker of the webinar, Honorable Dr. Mahsa Moshfegyan ma'am from Salahdin University, Iraq. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation. Today's first resource person, Honorable Dr. Suresh, Professor in Economics, School of Economics and Public Policy, Mumbai University. Dr. Suresh is proud of our college because he is a prominent alumni of the economics department of this college. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. I welcome you in this function. I wholeheartedly welcome today's program's second resource person, Honorable Neha Mishra ma'am, Department of Sociology, Government College, Daman. I would like to welcome and special thanks to all participants, those who are connected with us on this digital platform from various countries and various states of India. I am very much happy to announce that there are so many participants from other countries like Italy, Philippines, Pakistan, Iran, and Iraq. Our Vice Principal, Mr. M.A. Jogde sir, our second Vice Principal, Dr. M.N. Gaikwad sir, and our all teaching and non-teaching staff, they always support us. Dear participants and dignitaries, we all are facing the pandemic crisis. This pandemic not only challenged the living world, but also the systems like education across the world. On this background, we are going to organize this event on online mode. Near about 300 participants have registered for this international webinar. Some are across the country and state. I congratulate Mr. Govind Bavaskar, Department of Sociology and other supporting staff for taking very much efforts to success this webinar. We choose recent trends in gender studies as the main topic for today's webinar, as it is a very important topic in the period after and before COVID-19, because today along the economics and sociology, different subjects and disciplines seems to cover this subject. Literature, social sciences can be seen today while doing research and study on the subject of gender studies. The academic study of gender emerged in late 1960s. It was triggered by the second wave of feminism. The second wave of feminism focused on how personal relationships and economic and political roles of women in the society were suffering from inequalities. Gender studies is an interdisciplinary academic field devoted to analyzing gender identity and gender representation. Like queer studies and men's studies, it originated in the interdisciplinary programs, women studies concerning women, feminism, gender, and politics. The rise to prominence, especially in Western universities after 1990s, coincided with the rise of deconstructionism. Disciplines and frequently contribute to gender studies include the field of literature, linguistics, human geography, history, political science, archaeology, economics, sociology, psychology, anthropology, cinema, musicology, media studies, human development, law, public health, and medicine. It also analyzes how race, ethnicity, location, social class, nationality, and disability interest with the categories of gender and sexuality. In gender studies, the term gender is often used to refer to the social and cultural constructions of masculinity and femininity, and not to the state of being male or female in its entity. However, this view is not held by all gender uh, scientists. Someone viewed by many sociologists support. Through there are many other contributors like Amartya Sen and other economists into the field of gender studies with different backgrounds and opposing views, such as psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan and feminists such as Judith Butler. On this background, we are all know gender studies is the most emerging issue in recent era for the researchers and thinkers to take efforts for establish a eco-friendly environment for gender equality as per sustainable development goals. I also mentioned the name of a famous sociologist, Simon de Beauvoir, is the view that many sociologists support us on the study area of gender studies. After webinar, we are going to publish all research papers in recognized international peer-reviewed journal. The post-webinar publication will be done on 25th May 2022. I expect this international webinar will be fruitful and useful to academic stakeholders and society. Once again, I welcome you all and thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your introductory word regarding our college and regarding this international event. Now, I request Mr. Govind Bavaskar, who is the convener of this international webinar, Mr. Govind Bavaskar, to give his convener's talk. Over to Mr. Govind Bavaskar.
Hello. I warm welcome to honorable guests and participants. Myself, Govind Bavaskar, Head, Department of Sociology and convener of this international webinar on recent trends in gender studies. First of all, I would like to thank President of Marathwada Shikshan Prasarak Mandal Aurangabad and former Minister State of Maharashtra, Honorable MLA Prakash Dada Solanke, Honorable MLC Satish Bhau Chauhan, Secretary Marathwada Shikshan Prasarak Mandal Aurangabad, and Honorable Jaising Bhaiya Solanke, Executive Member Marathwada Shikshan Prasarak Mandal Aurangabad and Chief Member College Development Committee Dharur, give the permission to take this webinar. The problem of gender is seen as a burning issue in today's society, as there is a great deal of social and cultural discrimination in society on the basis of physical differences between men and women. But the reason for all discrimination against men and women in the society is not to be found in their physical differences. Sex is a physical, while gender is formed in society. Women and men are raised in specified way. It teaches men and women how to behave. This is the idea of femininity and masculinity. This idea have a profound effect on human behavior. These stereotypes of femininity and masculinity pit women and men against each other. As a result, in a patriarchal society, gender equality trends of favor men, and women are more likely to be biased. Today, the concept of gender is not limited to the identity of man and woman, but also emerged as an idea to treat homosexuals, bisexual, transgender, intersex, and queer personalities with respect in society. The international webinar is
and one inaugural and keynote address and two technical sessions will cover our ideas and thoughts related with recent trends in gender study. I again welcome to inaugurator and keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Mahsa Moshfegyan, Professor Salahdin University, Erbil, Kurdestan, Iraq. I also welcome to resource person, Professor Dr. Suresh, Professor Mumbai School of Economics and Public Policy, University of Mumbai. I welcome resource person, Neha Mishra, Head Department of Sociology, Government College. Lastly, I would like to give best wishes to participants and assure that there will be discussion in this international multidisciplinary webinar. Enjoy this webinar and be join continues throughout this webinar. Thank you, one and all. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bavaskar, sir. Now I request today's inaugurator of this event and his keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Mahsa Moshfegyan, Professor Salahdin University, Erbil, Kurdestan, Iraq to deliver her inaugurator's talk and keynote address to us. Before to start her lecture, I would like to introduce Professor Dr. Mahsa Moshfegyan, Madam. Her curriculum vitae is huge, but I have make it brief. At present, Madam is professor at Salahdin University, Language Center, Erbil, Iraq. She has completed her master's degree in Gender Education, University of Pune, Pune. She has completed her PhD in Education, University of Pune, Pune. Her academic experience is, she has academic experience in various academic institutes and universities from the year 2008 to till this date. She is a Director of Quality Assurance, Jahan University, Erbil, Iraq. She is also Director of Learning Development Unit, Jahan University, Erbil, Iraq. She is a member of National University Ranking Committee at the Ministry of Higher Education, Erbil, Iraq. She is a member of Scientific Committee, General Education Department, Salahdin University, Erbil, Iraq, and she is Associate Researcher, Pune University, Pune, India. She has administrative experience also. She is a part-time administrator, Solotel Services Private Limited, IT, Technical Services at Pune, Mumbai, India. She is a primary school manager and teacher, Volhan Adil Shah, Ormi, Iran. She is a office manager, Arvind Company, Ormi, Iran. She has delivered number of lectures as a keynote speaker as well as resource person. 5 keynote address she has delivered, and she has delivered 6 resource person lectures. There are 8 publications on her credit, having higher impact factor in the reputed journals. She has attended 8 conferences and seminars, and out of these 8, 7 are from India and 1 from Iraq. She has also organized 9 national, international workshops, seminars, programs on her credit. She is a chairman and member of 13 professional committees. Her participation is in 18 international, 24 national, 20 university level seminars and conferences. She is a senior editor of International Multidisciplinary Research Journal, and she has worked as a member of national non-governmental organization, Erbil, Iraq, for 2 years. So with this, I request today's eminent personality, Professor Dr. Mahsa Moshfegyan, to deliver her keynote address and inauguration talk on this occasion. Over to Professor Dr. Mahsa Moshfegyan.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Am I audible?
Yes, madam, yes.
All right. A very warm welcome to guests and all the participants from India and abroad. I would like to extend my greetings to the former Chief Minister of Maharashtra, as well as the principal of the university. If you allow me to share my screen, please.
Yes, yes.
Screen share?
Yes.
All right. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar University, Aurangabad, Art, Commerce, Science College. Thank you very much for inviting me and having me over during this international webinar. This is very important topic which you have selected, and we are going to have our talks and exchange our ideas regarding that, which is recent trends in gender studies. So I'm just going to start with an introduction. Recent trends in gender studies in today's life is very important and vital. It is very, very important to pay more attention to the recent trends in gender studies because society is changing. Now, here we have the introduction about this. Right. Gender is recognized as one of the major social elements of the health. Now, I have got a boy or I have got a girl. This is one of the very, very major social elements of the health, particularly in underdeveloped countries like India, Iran, Iraq, or whatsoever. According to the American Social Association, gender forms refer to the socially constructed rule behaviors, activities and attributes that a given society considers appropriate for boys or men, or girls or women. Whereas gender is sometimes viewed as something that an individual is. So gender is actually something individual is, which is very much individually, which is very much private, but sometimes the attribute is what society considers you as a boy or as a man. But then current social science is understanding the gender emphasize that is something that an individual does throughout their behavior and interaction with each other. So in today's life, in today's science study, the understanding of gender is actually an individual who is having the behavior or interaction with each other. Now, in other slides, I will come across why this gender, I would say, emphasize on gender or the individual differences are different. Now here, thus a person's behavior is critical, or their abilities to fit into the cultural gender norms are very, very critical, and it has changed throughout the years. People are different, individual differences are count here because the people are behaving differently, and it is very crucial and it is very critical. Now, here gender forms can play a very, very powerful role in a person's life. Of course, we know one gender norm can change sometimes a person's life. Now here, we can say, since the version from the norms associated with one's biological can be met with consequence from peers, social exclusion, and sometimes even emotional and physical violence. We have witnessed many emotional violences and many physical violence. And in recent years, it's not only emotional violence against girls. Also, there are emotional and physical violations against women have been witnessed throughout the world. So it is also very, very important to see the social exclusion and sometimes even emotional or physical violations against gender or biological sex can be witnesses in the society. Now here, conforming to the gender norms can have implications from an individual health, because certain behaviors considered to normative or particular gender may be associated with the health outcomes. Here we are having the different forms of gender, different norms of gender, which can multiple with individual health. Now here, what I'm trying to say is one individual health can be implicated by the different norms which gender can create for a person. Now, I'm giving you an example. Now, in today's life, you can see a boy can easily drink, but that same I'm talking about booze or alcohol, but the same booze is not allowed, or it's forbidden for a girl. So you see that a normative for the particular gender may be associated with some violence, or it won't be with the health outcomes. So these norms vary from one gender to another gender. Now here, in today's life, in 21st century, the researchers are trying to overcome these gender differences. Example is, it is normative for men in many cultures to drink alcohol, which is, we know it's fine here in India too, there in Iraq too, in many other countries, it's fine, and then avoid certain healthy food options to avoid the health care. Why? Because each one of those behaviors have implications for overall health of men. As the same alcohol or the same food for women, because of the gender norm, may have effects such as limiting decision-making power over family planning behaviors, or even limiting physical activity out of the concern for appearing less feminine. So you see, because of family planning, obviously, because a woman gets pregnant, because a woman gives birth to the child, because of the family appearance, or because of the society norms, a woman cannot do what a man can do. But it's not actually what they call it, the human right or gender equality or whatsoever. So it's because of the normative of the men who are trying to gain or to get advantage of the situation, and they are trying to forbid a woman of having a certain food, or having many options in terms of having alcohol or having drinks, and a woman stopping them of having certain things in life because of their health issue. And then the role of gender norms on health behavior is typically and slightly different for men and women. The risky health behaviors are the expression of masculinity for men, obviously, and there for women, gender norms also can constrict women's power and limit their ability to take control of their health. In both the cases, here or there, the influence of gender norms on their health operation throughout their health is very, very obvious behavior. So if they say they are not allowed to have the certain food or certain drink because of the society norms or because of the health, again they are just trying to gain the society norms or trying to have operate throughout the health behavior. Here we are having, sorry? Yes, please. Hello?
Please continue, ma'am. Please continue.
Here we are having an article from Mahsa and colleagues identifying the major health behaviors that are the leading cause of the death in United States. A very important article from Mokdad, which is a very, very important indicator of. We review the recent advance in research on the role of gender norms in each of those type of health behavior, while the numerous studies explore gender differences in health behaviors. Examples are here. Difference in the smoking patterns between male and female. You see, the smoking patterns are also very, very different between two genders. We focus on those articles that exploring explaining how gender norms and masculinity or femininity influence these behaviors. So again, here the gender norms can influence the different behaviors between male and female. Again, we come here and we analyze how the gender and health behavior can change from one to another, from male to female, from man to woman. All right, here we have diet and physical activity. The experimental research on the role of gender norms in diet and physical activity related behavior is limited and lack of coherent trends. According to the identified findings in different researchers and different papers, different studies of a gender dynamic, specifically the rule of views as a food pattern, men are having different eating pattern. There are studies highlighting the lack of power in controlling their behavior over their diet because the food preparation and traditionally female domain. The reason being he is here is the masculinity, because they feel if they eat certain food, they'll have more masculinity. Here, other research explore whether or not food choice are used to construct one's gender identity. According to the researchers, that men sometimes eat meat is because it makes them feel more masculine. And other studies show that woman's choice of being a meat eater or vegetarian as unrelated to how closely she confers or female norms. So you see, of course, not in India, because mostly in India, people are vegetarian, but abroad, we see many people eat meat, particularly steak, or mostly they prefer to have non-vegetarian because they feel having non-vegetarian will help them to have more muscular, or they feel because of the blood circulation, they'll have more muscularity. You see, the gender also changes the diet habit as well as their physical activity, because they eat certain food and they feel physically active, and of course their eating habit influenced by the physical activity influenced by their eating habit. And then sexual behavior, it varies from one to another, from female to male, and then And here we have the research on the role of gender norms in sexual behavior is relatively well developed compared to other type of healthy behavior. Here we are having, in recent years, studies find that men who believe in traditionally gender roles, for example, separate rules of men and women, are more likely to have greater number of sexual patterns or avoid condom use. Those people who are believing in traditional ways of having sex are trying to avoid the condoms while they're having sex. Though those studies are not the first to document this relationship. They document this relationship within a wider range of populations, and of course, they measure and then they understand that their thinking way is still traditional. They don't believe of having safe sex because they are having the same traditional thinking way. Most probably uneducated, or most probably they are having still that traditional way of thinking, or many other things. So the sexual behavior varies from one to another. Again, notably, Nelson finds that there is no relationship for women between attitudes towards gender roles and sexual behavior, indicating that the mechanism may be more relevant for male populations. So you see, Nelson says that according to Nelson's understanding and research and finding out, relationship for women between attitudes toward gender role and their sexual behavior indicates their mechanisms are more relevant than the population. And then here we are having substance use. Unlike the sexual health behavior, substance use has less developed history to examine gender roles. However, recent articles addressing gender norms of their influence on substance use behavior have typically focused on three content areas. What substance use are? We all know that in today's society, alcohol, tobacco, cigarette, or this so-called shisha, or this, I don't actually remember what is the name, they smoke, anyway, tobacco, and the other forms of substance use which they take, and then other forms of the substance they misuse, including injection drugs or ecstasy or other the relevant drugs are actually, they call it love drug, are actually increasing their sexuality power or their sexuality behavior or their muscularity, but it is untrue. This is also untrue, unlike the sexual health behavior, according to the findings. And then even misusing them or overusing them. Again, I say, and I emphasize in this point that using or overusing or the other forms of substance misuse of these are not even helping them, also reducing their muscularity, and then they are getting out of their senses, and then obviously they are misbehaving. And then we go to the other slide, injury and the violence. The argument of gender within the field of injury and violence is varied. This is not something which has not been documented. It is documented widely. The argument or the gender violence, which is very, very common, and it is very, very documented everywhere, the gender violence, man towards woman, and then husband against wife, and the research on the injuries tended to focus on the gender differences, the of course expectation, and then the researchers on the suicides, and then which is severally reported in different places, in different countries, and then these injuries, in this violence against women mostly happens and takes place in different countries. And in recent years, different governments are trying to stop it by educating them, by applying different and strict rules against whoever is doing. And now we are reading, we are hearing, we are witnessing different violence, even against men in different societies. It's not just only against women. And then again, different governments are trying to apply different rules. Whoever is violating the other's rights should be punished. And then these injuries and violence must stop, regardless of gender and regardless of sex, whether female or male. This should not happen. And then argument of gender with the field of injury and violence should stop, regardless of the gender. And then we come to the intimate partner violence, and the domestic violence has increasingly moved to focus on a primary prevention effort by tragic offense, typically men or typically male, that endorse unhealthy muscular norms. For example, the child abuse, the pair violence, the youth violence, and then sexual aggression. Well, obviously, these are very sad to hear, these are very sad to read, these are very sad to search about, write about, document about, but these are happening, and we as educators have to stop it. Yeah.
Continue,
Please continue, ma'am.
Yeah, sorry?
Please continue, please continue.
Yeah. So these are very sad, but these are something which is happening in different societies, and then we as a educator, as a teachers, as a professor should stop it. We should teach our teachers, we should teach our students to stop child abuse, pair violence, youth violence, and then sexual aggression, which tends to confirm that supporting traditional masculinity norms play a big role in violence, in these violence. So when we teach our students and they look at us as a role model, and if we teach them rightly, and then they teach their students, we actually start putting on a pattern. We put a path for them to walk through. Whenever they obviously, if we teach them, that will not happen in their families and relatives. And then if they witness any kind of child abuse or pair violence or youth violence or sexual aggression, they try to stop it and they try to educate them. Or at least, if none of them, they try to report them and save a child or save a woman or man from a pair violence, or save a kid from a youth violence. So it's one of our duties. And then we come to the conclusion. The gender norms and health behavior is varied across different types of health behavior. All right, a human being is supposed to have a healthy behavior. Now, the gender norms is very important to have a healthy behavior. Whatever society gives us as a gender norm, it is very important to form our behavior. In contrast, research on a health behavior appears to be more promising in health behavior. More recently, researchers on masculinity and muscular norm appear to have taken on an increasing proportion of studies on a relationship between gender norms and the health. In today's life, this recent studies appear to help and take place in increasing the proportion of studies which shows the relationship between the gender norm and the healthy behavior. So we are seeing more healthy behavior in today's life. We are seeing more and more appropriate behavior in a society in today's life. We are seeing, we are witnessing more women in society in today's life being active along with men, working, and then less violation against women, which is a great improvement, showing that less aggression against women is taking place, and that healthy behavior is taking place, and gender norms are actually changing in the society. And historically, gender studies were often associated with research on a woman focus on limitations gender norms place in their healthy behavior. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, the gender norms changing obviously in the society, and then healthy behaviors appear to be in the society, and then this balances between men and women, and then as we see the balance between these two, the less aggression will take place, and then the society norm will change. And then nevertheless, recently more articles also explore the role that muscularity plays in men's, sometimes women risk behavior. Obviously, when they overuse the alcohol or misuse, or when earlier I mentioned when they have substance use of different drugs or tobacco or whatsoever, there are some misbehavior takes place. And again, earlier I mentioned if when the government is applying strict rules against those, that is where this kind of misbehavior is controlled by government, and then this balance will take place, and then a female can have better participation in the society, and then the number of male and female would be balanced in the society. And then additional significant argument is here. In today's world, we are seeing new and varied pollution integrated into the study of gender norms and health behavior, which is transgender. Earlier in the first slide, I said, and now I emphasize, the transgender, which individual are, this is the population that is gaining, increase. We see they are just increasing more recently, and they are they are taking the attention of the society, as well as they are taking the attention of research on the sexual behavior. And we are seeing the researchers on the gay and lesbian population integrated in the research of their health behavior beyond just their sexual behavior. You see, I personally do not say, this is not a platform I can put on my personal opinion. I can't say anything, but then this is something which is happening today, transgender, which is individual choice. Their population is increasing, and then they are increasing the attention of the society. And then researchers are studying about their sexual behavior, and we are seeing the researchers, the gay and the lesbians, are having the attention of the society. They are the parliaments, the governments are passing rules. They are having their identity. And then the population integrated to their research and their health behavior beyond just their sexual behavior. So today is not just male and female. There is a third gender, which is transgender, I would say. I don't know, but it is there. And then here, the researcher needs to continue building the evidence based on the relation between gender norms and then health behavior. To move to the field, to move the field forward, researcher will need to focus on examining the mechanism by which those norms influence the behavior. Here, we as a researchers are in need of continuing building these evidences based on a relationship. How the relationship can be built on a gender norms which the society gives you, varies from one society to another society, that is based on basically religion. And the family understanding, and then other elements of the society. And then health behavior, which depends on the society norms. And then move the field forward, and the research will need to focus on examining the mechanism, those mechanisms made by which the norms influence the one's behavior. So our behavior as a female, as a male, is completely depends on the society norms and the norms which they so-called gender norm. If I, as a female, act like a male, people will object me. This is very obvious reaction of a third world country. If I do so in a first world country, nobody will object. But here, people will object. So gender norms varies from male to female. And then if I act like a male, I won't call healthy, it won't call healthy behavior, it's called unhealthy behavior. So to have healthy behavior, I'll have to act according to the gender norm. And then people will examine that mechanism. And then my behavior should be influenced according to that. So here is that study which should be taken into the consideration. And then I believe that is it. And then we go to the additionally, we need further exploration on how gender norms can lead to the health outcomes differently for men and women. This is very, very important to understand. These gender norms can help us to have healthy outcome on a different men and women. This is same for everybody, but then we'll have to see how it can help from one to another, considering the individual differences as a social determination of a health gender norms plays an important role in the health of individual, and documenting and exploring this relation can also help improve health at the population level. So in addition to whatever I said, a researcher, a scientist, a lecturer, a teacher can help the student, human being, somebody to lead the healthy outcome in different way, considering the gender norms, having a healthy outcome in different way, according to the social determination of the health gender norms, playing a very, very important role of an individual and documenting and exploring the relationship according to the population level. Here is from me. Thank you very much. I'm open for questions, please.
Thank you, madam,
Thank you.
for delivering a very nice talk.
Thank you very much.
Participants are requested. This lecture is open for the discussion. Any query, any question, you please ask.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Please.
Hello.
Yeah.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So my question is not related to gender, but what cultural differences do you find over there in your country? And you many a times visited India and various cities of India. So how could you see, I mean, how would you see the differences between upbringing amongst boys and girls in both the countries?
That is very, very, very good. This is very difficult question to answer, actually. See, I said the society norms are vary from one to another, and that is basically, I would say the society norm is based on religion. If you might know, Iraq is Islamic country and India is Hinduism country. So it's just, you can't compare. If you are a PhD holder, you must be knowing, if we want to compare two things, they must be having the same criteria. So I certainly cannot comment on that, because those countries are having different criteria for upbringing children, and here they are having certainly different criteria for upbringing children. So very different, very, very different. I can't really, it's not comparable, I would say.
Right. I mean, you mean to say that the pattern though is different, but there are some discriminations in society and in social behavior between male and female?
Well, I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say that, actually. I'm trying to say that the social norms vary from country to country based on their religion.
Of course. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Anybody, other participants, do you have any questions?
I live in Erbil, Kurdestan, and I have not witnessed any social discrimination back there in Erbil. I really cannot say that, but again, I emphasize on what I already said.
Yes, ma'am. Got it. Got it.
Yes. So, thank you, madam, for
Thank you
your
very much.
nice. Thank you for your nice talk,
Thank you very much.
all the participants. So, I request, madam, please mute yourself so that other resource person will be joined. Thank you. Now, I request the resource person of this one-day national, international webinar on recent trends in gender studies, Professor Dr. Suresh Main, who joined from Professor, Mumbai School of Economics and Public Policy, University of Mumbai. The topic of Professor Dr. Suresh Main sir is Sustainable Development Goals, Gender Equality. Before to start his talk, I request Dr. Ananta Gade to introduce resource person, Professor Dr. Suresh Main sir. Professor Ananta Gade, please introduce.
Thank you, Gaikwad sir. Good afternoon, all. Myself, Dr. Gade. I am here to brief today's guest, Dr. Suresh Main sir. Sir is currently working as a professor at Mumbai School of Economics and Public Policy in University of Mumbai. He has a 17-year teaching experience. 2 students are awarded as a PhD degree from his valuable guidance, and 7 students are currently doing PhD under. Sir has published 18 different articles in renowned publications. Sir has published 9 articles in different chapters. Sir has also presented some articles, papers in 21 international and 14 national conferences. He has also invited as a guest in different international and national conferences. Sir is currently working on different bodies and councils, like sir is a Senate member of BOS, Mumbai University, member of University Standing Committee, Director of Academy for Administrative Career, and additionally, he is handling MRP of Government of Maharashtra. This is about 7 crore and working 67 field officer on this project, and he is chief coordinator for that MRP. I am glad to brief Dr. Suresh Main sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Thank you. I think it's the time for me, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Am I
Over to you.
audible properly?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
You are audible.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. It's a great privilege to me, and I would just express first of all my gratitude towards this college, because I am here because of the college. As my best friend Professor Bharti sir said, that I am an alumni of this college, and I'm always proud about the college, who is working for the rural area, but making the good people, and also contributing in the area of education. So respected principal of in-charge principal of the Professor Bharti sir, coordinator Paviska sir, and the chairperson of this session, Honorable Sri Satish Bhau Chauhan, Secretary of the MSP Mandal, and Honorable Minister Prakash Dada Sulonke, ex-minister of this, and also President of the MSP Mandal, Aurangabad. Also, who delivered very wonderful lecture in the first session, inaugural session, Professor Mosha. All the professors who are joined as a resource person, all the vice principal of the college, head of department in the colleges, different colleges, all my dear colleagues and dear friends or students. First of all, I would like to congratulate for the selection of this theme, which is a very necessity of the world. Not only this is renowned in the, or not only the essential for the woman perspective, this is a necessity of time till where we are entered in the 21st century, but still the changes are very slow in the particularly social aspect, and also in the adoption of the equality. Still, if we look about the development and equality, whereas the big lacuna which we are getting experience in the area of development or woman empowerment. So my topic of today is the sustainable development goals and gender equality, which is given for my today's this deliver our lecture. I will try to just cover a few important aspects from the woman's perspective, and also will try to relate it with the overall development of the country also. I'm going to share, I think, my screen. I'm not sure. Is it visible, sir?
No, sir.
The screen is not visible.
Just please. I'm sharing what is the only the host can share in the meeting. I think sir, you must. Yeah, now
Now
I
you
will.
can.
Yes. Now is you visible?
No, sir, it is not visible. Mine, sir.
Sorry, just I did. Please wait. Sorry for this disturbance. Screen. It's taking time. Oh, sorry for this. Once again.
No problem, sir.
Something happening wrong. screen. But this is, sir, now is visible.
Sir, it
Sir,
is
it's now
not
visible.
visible, sir.
No, sir.
So sorry, I'm joining actually from the laptop also, but not getting the connection. Something it is saying that the invalid that number or code. Now it's
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
visible.
Yes, it is visible, sir.
Your
Yes.
screen
Thank you so
visible.
much. I'm
Yes.
so sorry,
Yes.
so sorry for the disturbance.
It's okay, sir. It's okay.
Okay, once again, just I'm talking about this topic which is given for me, and it's as per said that the theme which is very much connected with the economics. So I choose this topic for the today's delivery. The sustainable development goals and gender equality, which is the very crucial issue in the today. As I said that the why it is more important this issue in the today, because still if you see the ratio of the world extreme poor in the poverty, still which found around the 70% of the world's extreme poor are women. This is the notable thing, I think, still when we are entered in the 21st century. In India, just women contributes around the 41% of the agricultural GDP and 32% of the workforce in this overall sector. Still, if you see the disparity and the discrimination in the various sector, you will get that about the agriculture industries and also in the services relative to the men. The still the women are struggling for the surviving. About the achievement of human development depends on the empowerment of the 586 million women of the India. About this census 2011, which says about the still from the rural area, so most of the women are still deprived, and as I said, that around the 41% are in the poor category. If you see the little glossary about this, the few important words like that, the gender. When we are talking about the gender, it attributes about the opportunities associated with the or which is the socially constructed and learn through the socialization process, change with the time. When we are talking about these constructions or specialization, socialization, still the changes are very slow, which is seen in the overall world. I will show later on in the presentation of gender gap index. This gender equality, what is exactly expecting about the men and women, whereas the conditions of that realizing their human rights and contributions, it should be equally in the area of like economic, social, cultural, and political development. Means once suppose we are talking about the gender equality, we should provide the equal opportunities in these all areas like the economic, social, cultural, and political. More or less, if you look as a peoples from the all, I think academic institution, still the many barriers we are created for the humans and still not much removed from this framework or this kind of barriers. So gender equality, which is expected in the all areas in briefly. Gender equity, whereas the fairness and the treatment towards the woman and men according to the respective needs, it should be changed and should be adopted. When we are talking about the empowerment of the woman, that must be shown that the independence of them means freedom for them in the each and every activities. When we are talking about the women and their equity, that kind of empowerment which is expected. A few important key concepts which I incorporated for this presentation, that is like the gender gap. Whereas the gender gap indicates about the social and economic opportunities, education, status, attitudes, wage, income, access, capital, resources, women's, which is also very, very key factor we should, I think, change in the area of when we are talking about the gender equality. Few very important variables we should take in the consideration while the study of the gender gap and gender equality, like the economic participation and opportunities. Uh, I come up with the few data in the later slides about this all economic participations and these variables. Also, I try to incorporate few the salary that that structures about the men and women, their participation, their levels, their access of the employment in the all sectors like agriculture, services, and so on. Also, their participation in the educational attainment and the basic and higher level education. Also, political empowerment and their representation in the decision making. All these the variables when we are looking in the manner of economic perspective, I think still we should go with the details about the data. If you look the few ways, whereas we are still discriminating about the gender inequality, okay, and is we can call like the type of gender inequalities. What kind of inequalities we are experienced in the country of India, like the in the mortality inequality, where if you just compare from the data of all census, all the previous census, which will be indicate that the mortality inequality among the genders. Okay, so this is I think one of the type of gender inequality which is the considerable. Then also natality and the inequality, whereas the preference to also the result in female that what is said, which is getting suffered still in the category of natality inequality. Basic facility inequality, which are also more or less we are looking in the various states. For the basic facilities, there is the always behavioral change which are adopted in the cultural manner. So mostly in the family also there is given the superiority to the male relative to the female, which can say that the basic facility and its inequality in the type of just that gender inequality. A special opportunity inequality, if you see the few sectors, whereas still the very few representation which we adopted in the working for the woman, but this the special opportunity which is still deprived for the this female or to the I think women. In a professional inequality also, whereas like in the defense or in the global level also, if you look about the professional inequalities, which is also found more or less that levels can be changed, but is there, that the existence is there about the professional inequality. Similarly, about the ownership inequality, means all kind of ownership, like that the economic purview, like that the ownership of the registered companies, ownership of their own uh, units. If you see the inequality you will get in about the male and female. uh, about the household inequality and that behavioral change, again the so many barriers are found regarding the gender gap, which is sometime talked about the religious, cultural, and other kind of. So all these are the types which indicates the more or less at the globe, not only in the India, at the global level, which seen, but the layer can be changed, the data can be little bit fluctuate, but that is adopted or still, which is not much denied and not much adopted as the equal manner and equity about the gender. The gender equality matters for the growth, because if you see the ratio of male and female, whereas around equal, or if you see that the gender ratios among the various countries, which indicates the around the 50% participation in the world they had. So still the gender equality is the matter for the growth in the smart economies when we are talking in the today's area. So we should, I think, go with this kind of removing barriers for the access to productive inputs, services, opportunities, gender productivity, then gains, crucial for the competitive globalized world, because it's asset. It's that as an asset, it should be seen while the going to the process of development. Though that the misallocation of the women's skill and the talent adds to the economic cost, but still which I think I as that database which I'm talking about, that the goals and the development process which discriminating the contribution of men and women in the economic development. When we are talking about the sustainable goals or the millennium development goals, whereas defined as an important goal, like the promote, I'm just going to focus to that area, which is mostly regarding the promote gender equality and empower women, which is the one of the millennium development goals in that list which is adopted. Also we were adopted as a policy making, or in that MDG, like the improvement in the mental health about the women in the country. Other are the mostly related to the economy and poverty. But in the Millennium Development Goals, once we adopted the promote the gender equality and empower to the woman, then why still there is the contribution is not same? This is the question. This is the question also, why still the economies of the gender equity and development is not equal like this. This is also, we if see the beginning of this cultivation, whereas emphasized by the Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, about that the some that resources which is actually started by the woman at the global level, who emphasize about the first demonstrated about the crop plants, and thereby they initiated to the art of the science, and also farming, means which is the farming, and this process of the cultivation we started with the women, that emphasized by the Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, then which is, we can say, the pioneer of this kind of sector of the agriculture, which is the woman. So I think this is the economic and gender equity, which is the required for the further development in this area. Because when we are looking about the economic development, whereas this kind of equality and in the development process, that same opportunities must be provided for the both. If you see the some few data about the sex ratio of the India, which is says that from the last few census, this last census which happened in the 2011, which was indicates about the 940 females per thousand, but recently which talks about the increment of this that sex ratio. India also ranked around 21 or 21st in the sex ratio at the global level. If you see the status of India in the different state, what is the sex ratio in the different states, which indicates about the mostly southern states are better in the position of sex ratio, and relatively that other states like the middle states and north states are much below than that. I think that southern states, Kerala and that Pondicherry, which has the best or the I think the more that that gender ratio or highest gender ratio in their states. It's a better thing because culturally that is the I think indicates the freedoms and other things. But again, there is the scope for criticism. The sex ratio of the population and the children aged about the 0 to 6 or is a child, we can say the birth rate in the last few census, which are observed like this. Is it visible? Because I don't know about this.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you. Yeah, thank you. So if you look and observe about the sex ratio and child sex ratio, particularly about the red color that graph, which is indicating is unfavorable scenario about the child sex ratio. It's drastically in a downtrend. Okay, relatively this I think sex ratio is little bit constant, but this is the serious thing. Whereas found that the child sex ratio, which is the drastically going to in the downtrend, and it means it indicates that I think disparity and not indicating about the equality. Literacy rate among the men and women in India from again from around independence or from the first 5-year plan, which says that the female and male, okay, that graphs indicates consistently which is going to in the increasing trend. But if you see the male female gap, which indicates with the green that line, which is yeah, we can say that the going to in the reducing trend. Okay, this is the data which collected from the different census. I would say for the researcher, when we are just forming this kind of graphs, it should be taken from the proper data. So whereas the data I collected from the different census to figure out about this kind of trends about the literacy rate. Whereas that shown about the 18, we miss very, we can say the few declined that percentage. We are looking about the male female gap, but which has still which indicates that gap around 16.7% as per the 2011 census. It's a matter. I think it's a matter when we are talking about the gender equality, but it is indicating the inequality. Okay, so I think that gap with 16.7% indicates the gender gap in the country from the all census data. Low women education and female enrollment in the education. If you see the current female enrollment in the school in India, that of the USA from also compared with the USA from 1940, whereas the that enrollment ratio in the woman, which is shown that the low level, relatively much low level about the female enrollment in the education, which is the again serious thing for the policymakers. When we are talking about their contribution in the economic and sustained development, that equal opportunity should be provided for the education, also for the different kind of their perspectives. And I think it is going to begin from the basic enrollment in the education. But unfortunately, with these figures says that the very low level of this enrollment, which indicates in our country about this women education related to that country. Now come to the other view of the that our perspective of the women development and their contribution. When we are talking about the sustainable development, there should be the equal contribution from the all stakeholders or the peoples of country. But annual growth rate of the employment, which indicates this kind of disparity, and also with that growth rate, which is also says about that after the independence, there is highlights about the after independence, what kind of the total annual growth rate of the employment which rise. If you go about the field or sector, informal sector, formal sector, and total, in the particular of the industry group, agriculture, retail trade, education, spinning, weaving, and in the this kind of allied activities. Whereas this positive sign, I should say that our should be observed with this data that shows that the women's employment rate, which is a little bit better than the men's in the few past years, like the 1999 to 2004. So we can't deny only that means that opportunities are not going to improve, but it should be with the higher rate. That is, I can I think appeal, or that should be the I think promoting thing. But which the this table says that the woman employment, which is in the better position than the men's in this informal and formal sector. Mostly highest that the employability which found in the spinning and weaving. It means the unskilled kind of employment, which the rural based kind of employment, whereas shows the more involvement from the woman category. Okay, so this is the I think observations we should note from that chart. Similarly, the percentage distribution of the works by sector and sex from the 2000 or in the 2004-5, which again says about the informal, formal, and that sectors and their contribution or is a workers' contribution with the participation of women. Women participation and men participation. If you look about the total, in the total of the men's and women's, with that red color indicates about the woman participation in the sector, whereas found that initially in the agriculture around 41.48 that percentage of the workers which participated from the women. Also, if you go about the less participation from the woman, which is notably or which is found in the trade. Okay, in the trade, it means still women are not much contributing, are not too much participating in the trade activities. Okay, so this is the major observation from this table, which indicates about the woman participation and its database. So whatever the statements are made from this kind of observations, I think it's indicating that the means in general kind of that like the agriculture and allied related activities which are dominantly participation which found from the human, but relatively in the other like that the ownership, and also in the that the education trade which is found the less participation from the woman's perspective. Also, if you see the percentage of the, I think that the same that data which indicates with the graph about the 2004-5 in the sector-wise contribution of the male and female. So here, if you look about the agriculture, manufacture, trade, education, private households, and it's a grand total, which red colors indicating the low levels of this distribution in the GDP in the industry in the different sectors. So this is, I think, again a notable point about the women's participation in the contribution of GDP, which is found a lesser proportion in the development process. So why this is the big question? Why this kind of disparity which found with the data? I think so many things which are behind the curtain, which I said in the earlier slide regarding the barriers, regarding the types of discrimination and inequalities. So I think this is indicates about the distribution and the contribution in the each sector in the GDP, which is found unequal. Now come to the another estimated GDP contribution of women and percentage share. I think that is the figure out already in the graph, so I'm not repeating. Now growth rate in the GDP by industry sector and the sex between 1999 to 2004-5 is a database of the contribution of women and national economy, which was the published by the Ravindran, and it says that the contribution, woman contribution, growing at the higher rate than the men in the few key sectors in India, which is a positive sign, I would say, because in the like that after the education and that access, some at the some places they are growing with this kind of participation. Economic contribution of the women in the total women GDP across the sectors, which found like this: the agriculture is the major kind of sector, whereas the women are contributing more. And as I already said, that the unskilled and this kind of primary sectors, whereas found the more participation from the woman, which is exactly not expected, which is expected to the transformation from this primary to other sectors, which is that transformation is required and necessary for the sustainable development goals and that achievement. Percentage distribution of the GDP in each industry group, which found like this. I think this is the already, but it's another year 2004-5 again indicates that the more participation from the woman is a main portion of my work, and that data which I found, which is the more important. I feel that as a researcher or as a student of this field, because the GDP per capita and gender, which found with the database of 86 countries, and whereas I correlated with the GDP per capita and gender, which is found like this, the positively correlated using the data from this 86 countries. That index measure male-female differences in the labor force, participation, wages, income, political participation, and number of technical workers. This is the indicator which I consider for this graph and for this work. With the help of that SPSS, I just come to just correlate these things, and I get the result like this, which is the GDP per capita and gender are positively correlated. What means? It means that those countries are getting more participation of the women. They are found in the better that GDP ratio. Okay, so this is my finding, which is the I think important to in the consideration for women's participation. And this is worked with the different parameters, which I initially said in the slide that as an indicator, which I selected about the social, economical, and also cultural. And from this kind of data sources, which says that the positive relationship between GDP and the participation of women, which I think considerably indicating the significance of this participation. So, as a growing economies, as a developing economies in our country, we have that kind of potential for the sustainable growth with the help of the skill and their participation in the different sectors. As the country of Japan, if you see, which is growing with the based on the manpower and their skilled people. So as the country of India, overpopulated country, exactly that kind of policy which is the necessity for the development process. Many times we are just I think crying about the overpopulated country, but if we look about the population as an asset, then we can receive, I think, the demographic dividend from the this global scenario. So in this manner, that the more trainings, more participation in the education, their barriers should be removed for the long development. In this manner, this the I think observation which says that the positively correlated with the contribution of this kind of women's participation. If now come to the who are the controls to the women's income, what are the mostly barriers at the global level, which indicates about in India around 78 of the women have decision making of the control over their income, whereas the Indonesia and the Philippines about the 90% of the women have control over their own incomes. So that relativity which is found the different levels among the various countries. If you look about the global gender gap index ranking, which indicates about the different countries and their positions, that different years or year-wise, if you look about the better situation about this global gender gap index and its ranking, which has found that the better position about the Iceland, Norway, which is already the in the HDI index also is the Norway is the topmost country from the last 2 decades, around 2 decades, and India surviving around the 113 rank about this global gender gap index ranking, which is indicates the poor scenario of India. But we can say from that poor scenario also positivity, like that the increment from the 60 to I think 62, like the slightly moving this country for the equality. And we can say that captures with the education and the open that field, we are providing this kind of mobility to our gender gap index ranking, and we are moving forward about the improvement in this index. I think I'm now going to turn about the few policy things about the reality about the gender participation, equality, also indicates that contribution of women in the GDP or in the economic development. But now, when we are talking, I think about the policies about that development of the area like the women and their empowerment, that national level and international level, many initiatives has been taken, no doubt. Or I think that notable things about the act, time to time changes at the country level, we are adopted. We are looking forward, moving for further the development at international also level. That international labor laws office, gender equality and social development departments, World Bank also going to support much gender action, that also working for the exclusively about the women development and their participation in the economic development. But more or less, that the only acts when will be work when the participation has come in this kind of area. So I think that is the hope which we should implement in the coming days. Actual status of the girl child, like the daughter, mother, sister, wife, and the friends, should be the accepted. That behavioral change, which I think Professor Masho talks about, that which should be more open and should be treated like that, the equal treatment in the behavior of the gender, which need to the change cultural around the world to the value of the woman and the men equality. Also should be promote the understanding of the men's responsibility to the share household duties, that culturally should be adopted. That can be one of the way for the improvement, actual improvement in the, I think, this our reduction in the gender gap. With the literacy, gender equity can be achieved with the better positions. I think these the few submissions I observe from the my side that can be work, suppose will be more effectively. It can be more fruitful for the coming days in the more participation from the women's group in the sustainable economic development goal. So my dear friends, I think whatever I was planned to the share with you, I try to discuss and try to relate that the sustainable development goals and women's equality and the trends with the database. So I'm really thankful to the organizer. You given this kind of opportunity to me, share my few views about this issue. And it's a really pleasure and proud. Always I said, yeah, I'm a alumni of this college, and as a dynamic in charge principal of this college, I think he's moving forward with this kind of good intellectual gatherings in this rural kind of college. And I would say, as an alumni of this college, I'm always ready to just involve in the this kind of gatherings and activities. So once again, I am very much thankful to the in-charge principal, Professor Deepak Bharti sir. Also, I personally know also with the Prakash Dadaji Solonge sir, Satish Bhav also. So thank you to you all, and really you are all the doing work very well in this rural area where is the education is required. And I know in that my college also, which was the really the education which was required, and that access you have given to the girls also in that not only in the Dharur college, at the various different deprived places, you given this kind of platform. So I really thankful to you. I'm here because of this college. So I think with this, I'm once again thank you one and all. And I think I'm now stopping here. Thank you so much.
Very nice
Thank you.
presentation, sir. Very nice.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Suresh Main sir. So this talk is open for the discussion. The participants are requested to ask any query or question about this title, this talk. Any participants? Please, do you have any questions?
Please continue next session, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor
welcome.
Dr. Suresh Main sir. We are also proud of about you, because our alumni is reached at the topmost level. So thank you, sir, for giving your valuable talk and valuable time with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, and all my best wishes for the sessions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I request another resource person, Miss Neha Mishra Madam, who is joined from Government College, Daman, Union Territory of Dadra, Nagar, Haveli, Diu and Daman. She is the head department of Sociology, and topic of her talk is gender-based violence. Before to start her talk, I request Dr. Ananta Gade to introduce the resource person, Miss Neha Mishra, Madam. Over to Dr. Ananta Gade, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon once again. Neha Mishra, ma'am, currently working as a head and assistant professor at Department of Sociology, Government College, Daman. She is pursuing a PhD degree from Andaman University. She is invited as a guest speaker from 6 different events. She has presented different papers in so many international and national conferences. She is participated in 30 different events. I am thankful to being here, ma'am. Over to Neha Mishra, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on this topic. So I have been given the topic of gender-based violence. It's a very broad and general topic. So I will try my best to give you an overview about the concept of gender-based violence. So I will request Govind sir, if you can run my PowerPoint presentation from that side, because there was some problem in connecting from the laptop and.
Sure. 1 minute, ma'am. 1 minute.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Dr. Ananta Gade, please PPT share.
Yes, sir. Wait a minute, please. मला स्पीड भेटला.
Bavaskar sir, now you are able to share your screen.
Gade sir, 1 minute.
So by the time sir will activate the PPT and will share the screen, I'll just give you one outline. I think he is sharing the, yes, sir, this is the thing. Can we just go on the next slide? Then I'll start with the introduction. Yeah, thank you very much. So I was telling that today I will just try to give you a brief overview about this concept of gender-based violence. And I will be touching upon the various types of gender-based violence and why it is a problem and where it happens most of the time. If you see where it happens, what all are the spaces where it happens and where we witness these kind of violences, and what can be done to reduce or to minimize these kind of violence. So when, as you can see, I have written also in this PPT that it is a kind of violence. It is a kind of harm that is perpetrated against a person or a group of people because of their perceived sex, their gender, their sexual orientation, or their gender identity. Now, while women and girls suffer from gender-based violence, we most of the time we listen and we see the incidences against all the violences happening against the women or the girls. But at the same time, we cannot ignore that men and boys can also be targeted, and there are some incidences. But when you see in the data and the numbers and the facts, then you will see the number of incidences of violence against girls and women are more than men. That's why most of the time you will be able to listen about when we are talking about gender-based violence, you will see most of the data and facts more for the violence against girls and women. Now, this term is also sometimes used to describe targeted violence against LGBTQ population when referencing violence related to norms of masculinity, femininity, or any gender norms. When we talk about like gender-based violence, then as I told that it is a very broad concept. So it can be defined as physical, sexual, psychological harm, which is still a major public health problem despite numerous policies and programs. Sorry to interrupt. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes.
So, yeah, thank you. Gender-based violence is based on, majorly it is based on imbalance of power and is carried out with the intention to humiliate and make a person or group of people to feel inferior or subordinate in any manner. Now, we all see this gender-based violence is not a very new term which you are listening now only. It is very much deeply rooted in the social and cultural structures and setups, norms and values that govern society, and is often perpetuated by a cultural of denial and silence. Why these kind of gender-based violence are still prevailing, and still there is no there is no any stop to it. Why? Because most of the time in our culture, in our, even if you see earlier stages, now the sexual sex education and things are there, but earlier the denial culture was very much there because most of the girls have, in their any lifespan, they must have felt some kind of incest or some kind of child abuse in their childhood. But there are a lot of kind of denial, and people used to be asked to be silent. This is still there, but yeah, I cannot ignore that. Yeah, some point of awareness and some point of confidence is there nowadays in the population. But yes, it is deeply rooted in our social and cultural setups, and denial culture is very much there. That's why only very less number of cases gets reported and others goes in the denial. Now, gender-based violence can be sexual, can be physical, can be verbal, psychological. When I'm talking about psychological, it deals with the emotional things, like getting married, getting into forced marriage, or you should have a boy as a child, or why you are not getting a child. These kind of emotional and many more, or socioeconomic, and it can take many forms from verbal violence and hate speech on the internet to rape or even murder. Nowadays, very much prevalent form of gender-based violence took place in the cyberspace, where we can see a lot of cyberbullying and hate speech going on. And it can be perpetrated by, gender-based violence can be perpetrated by anyone, a current or former spouse, partner, a family member, a colleague from work, schoolmates, friends, an unknown person. I mean, it's an endless list. And the most important, which I have noticed, is people who act on behalf of cultural, religious institutions. I have seen in news, there were some instances, and I have seen in Twitter, there were some instances where some actress was playing some role, and because of that role, otherwise the hero was also there, but these cultural institutions, on behalf of these institutions, they were threatening the actress to murder her or to, harm her in any way. Those things, works like this when a person and a people on behalf of their culture and religious institution also try to harm and try to commit gender-based violence in the public or private spaces. Now, as per the United Nations data, gender-based violence is a global pandemic that affects 1 in 3 women in their lifetime. And the numbers are staggering. 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner violence. Globally, if you see, 7% women have been sexually assaulted by someone or other than the partner. One characteristics of gender-based violence is that it knows no social or economic boundaries and affect women of all socioeconomic backgrounds, no matter middle class, high class, or lower class. It affects all socioeconomic backgrounds. This issue, and that is why it is more important that this issue needs to be addressed in both developing as well as developed nations and countries. So now we will go on the second thing. This is the basic gender-based violence concept which I'm trying to convey to you all. And when we come to the types of gender-based violence, I have pointed these many points and these many types which came in my mind. And broadly, if you see, these are the main violence which you will hear, you will see happening around the world. Now, violence is often associated with the physical violence. Whenever gender-based violence come in our mind, we think of physical violence, neglecting other non-physical forms. Violence is a complex issue, and categorizing different types of violence can never be exact because there are so many kinds of abuses and violence. Some of the following types of violence which I have pointed here are these psychological, emotional, as I told. Stalking is very disturbing many times. Physical violence, we always we consider gender-based violence as physical violence. Verbal violence, including hate speech, socioeconomic violence, forced marriages, forced abortion, sexual violence, and many more like that. All forms can occur both in private sphere. When I'm saying private sphere, that includes in family and intimate relationships, and in the public sphere, committed by an unknown individual in public spaces or by organization, institutions, and states. Now, why this gender-based violence is a problem? This I have not included in my PPT. I will just tell you some of the things why this gender-based violence is a problem. This is a problem because gender-based violence is a human rights violation. Whenever this kind of things are happening, the first foremost thing is getting violated is the human right of a person, whether it is a man or a woman. It is an unrelenting assault on human dignity, depriving people of their human rights. Freedom from violence is a fundamental human rights, and gender-based violence, what it does, it undermines a person's sense of self-worth and self-esteem. And next, when we talk why this is a problem, then gender-based violence is an obstacle to gender equality. No matter how many things we are listening about gender equality and all, but if the gender-based violence of any kind, any form is happening around, it will be an obstacle to gender equality. And the third one, which I'm trying to put it here, is gender-based violence. When it happens, it doesn't happen to a single person. It affects everyone. Like if I give you an example, children raised in families where a woman is abused are also victim of violence, because if they are not getting physically violence, they are getting psychologically abused in that family. And you'd never know how it is affecting that boy or that girl and how he is going to react in his or her, teenage lifespan. So the children witness violence and may form the impression that such behavior is justified. There are some cases where, children answered back that this is normal, this is okay, I just slapped, it is normal, I didn't do anything wrong, because that person has seen this thing happening in their houses. So these things, they are, in other words, if I say, they assimilate violent norms. They are also brought up in a culture of violence that may negatively affect their self-development and ability to function in society. So these, when I'm saying gender-based violence, it not only affect a single person, it affects family members, it affects your friend, colleague, your whole, atmosphere, your whole surroundings also. So this is the thing that why this is a problem. Now, the next thing I am going to focus on, where gender-based violence happen. We are talking about it and we are seeing it is happening, but where majorly it happens, where majorly you will see or you will witness or you will be a victim. So where does it happen? So first, foremost, when we study socialization and all those things, then also the first foremost school comes as a family. So here also I will focus on that gender-based violence. First, most of the times happens at home. This is I'm going to elaborate little more. Home you feel is the safest place for you, but home is not a safe space for all. For some people, home can become the manifestation of the worst. Gender-based violence, within the home setting can take different forms with multiple power dynamics operating at the same time, like from child sexual abuse, sibling abuse, and emotional abuse by parents perpetrated on the girl child. This is one part where it is happening in the family, and it can extend to domestic violence, dowry-related violence, and intimate partner violence. All these manifestations are different forms of gender-based violence at home. The risk of violence within the home is also often normalized because a rigid concept of gender in the family structure are further encouraged in the patriarchal society. So this is the foremost, this is the major place where you will see gender-based violences take place. Now, the second one is violence at institution and workplace. This is the most prevalent type of gender-based violence happening in our surroundings. Many times you will see there are many kind of incidents happen in your workplace, and you must have heard about some kind of committees and sexual harassment cell. These kind of things are getting set up in your workplace to curb the incidences. Now, gender-based violence is prevalent at workplaces across the globe. You cannot say only in India, across the globe. At the workplace, it includes any kind of bullying, harassment, sexual abuse, stalking, as well as the coercive and controlling behavior of people who are in the position of power, who are in the superior position. At the workplace, gender-based violence can take the form of women being forced to work in hostile environment. When I'm saying hostile environment, means being exposed to inappropriate jokes and comments, unwanted physical contact, as well as various unwelcome forms of sexual conduct. Now, even though as I mentioned that some committees and some cells you must have heard, even though workplaces are mandated to have an internal complaints committee, the implementation of law on the ground is poor. some loopholes are there, and there is often no accountability on the part of the government or the administration to ensure that all workplaces implement the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act properly, which we call POSH also. The third place where you will see, and I think most of the girls, most of the women must have experienced this some or the other, time in their life, in the public space, in the public places when it happens. Sexual harassment and various forms of sexual violence in public spaces, both in urban and rural setting, are an everyday occurrence for women and girls in every country around the world. You cannot say again, this is everywhere, the touching, inappropriately touching and all. From unwelcome sexual remarks and gesture to stalking, rape, femicide, this is a lived reality for women. It happens on the streets, in and around public transportation, and at almost every public place. And this in turn, what it is doing, this in turn reduce women's freedom of movement and feeling of safety. And last, but not the least, sorry, am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
You are audible.
Yeah, no, some disturbance was there, that's why. Okay, the last but not the least is the cyberspaces. As I'm saying, this is the majorly, right now the hot spot where the gender-based violence is happening. As we all know, it is very easy to access social networking sites nowadays. And in this 21st century digital world that we live in, our online and offline world are more integrated than ever. Therefore, gender-based violence manifests in digital spaces in a massive way. Now, stalking and sexual harassment are now done with the help of digital tools such as social media to target women and gender minorities. When I'm saying gender minorities, I am referring LGBTQ communities. Discrimination, hate speech, cyberbullying are serious forms of online gender-based violence. The anonymity and easy access to the internet has made gender-based violence in cyberspace more frequent and a pressing issue. And this has to be taken care because it is increasing day by day. I know there are many measures have been taken to counterattack this, and they are working very nicely. But yes, this is a pressing issue right now. And now I will come how it can be stopped. I will not stopped cannot be done, but yeah, we can minimize the rate of gender-based violence happening in and around all the places. So first, sir, if you can go to the next slide, please. So can you please go to the next slide? Yes, thank you. So how we can stop, how we can try to minimize these kind of gender-based violence can be ending gender-based violence will involve action at all levels. When I'm saying all levels, it is like ending gender-based violence involves action at all levels, by challenging social norms, creating awareness, proactive media representation, supporting the survivor of gender-based violence, strengthening legislation to criminalize violence, and prosecuting the perpetrator without delay. The delay is too much. That has to be, expedite. People of all genders should find a space, find a safe environment to exist and flourish or thrive. Next is increase resources for shelter, increase hotlines and other services. Like when I'm talking about hotlines, I came across to know that National Commission for Women have introduced the hotlines to help the victims of domestic violence during the lockdown. Even they have released a WhatsApp number also, because there are some kind of many times the situation is so intense that you cannot call or you cannot reach. Then you can WhatsApp it. Is that a very well thought initiative by National Commission for Women? And there should be some shelter where you can if the women is in a very dangerous situation at least, and if they happen to escape from there, they can get some shelter and some services. These kind of things should be taken more care of. And next is like scale up the public awareness campaigns, and the public awareness campaigns can be done best in the colleges, and with the help of NGOs, you can expand the campaigns by telling them how gender-based violence works, and when you should know that when to complain and when to take an action rather than go in the denial. So these kind of campaigns can be done across the world, and develop and implement measures to address online and ICT facilitated violence. Like cybercrime.gov.in is very much active right now. NCW also have a complaint file page also, where you can, you can be assured that your identity will not be exposed, and you can file a complaint. And the actions are like they really take the action, and they have done a commendable job during the lockdown also. Now, if you increase the funding to women's organization now, because we have to ensure, when we are talking about that, socioeconomic violence is also coming in the gender-based violence category. So when we are talking about that, the economic independence should be there to the women. Nowadays, I am seeing many small-scale businesses are coming, and in the name of vocal for local. And I have seen many girls, many young ladies are coming. Yep. Many young ladies and many young women are coming with their startups. Like most of the small startups you will see in the field of fabric, in the field of clothing, in the field of sarees and handlooms. Now the girls, 2 or 3 girls, came together, and they just applied for some loan, and they got some loan, and they started their business. Nowadays, this is happening a lot of in the lot of places. So these kind of, you have to ensure women economic independence. Now, again, the law comes, efficient and accountable law enforcement machinery at all level is needed, not only that at one place. If at workplace, this committee has to be placed, it has to be placed and working properly. So that's why I'm saying at all levels. Then gender sensitization. Again, it starts from your family. So gender sensitization by parents and teachers is needed regarding the sensitivities and boundary of men-women relationships. Now, this is the things which, we all can take a step, and we'll try to minimize these kind of violence. But when we come to legality, legislative responses, then I will focus on some of the international legislative responses and some of the Indian legislative responses. Sir, can you please go to the next slide? Before this, sir. Before this. Yeah, thank you. So so first I will focus on legislative response, some international legislative responses. There are a number of international instruments to curb violence against women, like the United Nations General Assembly resolution endorsed the urgent need for the universal application of women's right of equality, security, liberty, integrity, and dignity. Second one, which I saw, is a very nice initiative, that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 5, states that no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Next, the Vienna Declaration, 1993. Sorry, in my PPT, it is written only 19. It's 1993. Calls for an action to integrate the equal status and equal human rights for women. It stresses towards elimination of violence against women in public as well as private spaces. And the next one, which was very much prevalent, and it has been taken into note by many countries, the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1981, to which 166 countries are member, is a landmark document because it framed violence against women within the framework of human rights. They majorly focused on the human rights of women. It identified female as the primary risk factor for violence and broadened the definition of gender violence to include all aspects of women's life. So these are some international legislative responses. Now I will come to legislative responses which are prevalent in India. So in our Constitution of India, if you see, Article 14 is on equality, which says that difference in treatment between men and women by the state is totally prohibited on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Next, Article 21 is right to live with human dignity, and it is a very basic right which everybody should get, no matter men or women. And the next one, National Commission for Women, it was set up as a statutory body in January 1992 under the National Commission for Women Act 1990 to review the constitutional and legal safeguard for women, recommend remedial legislative measures, facilitate redress of grievances, and advise the government on all policy matters affecting women. This is working very effectively in the favor of women's dignity and women's welfare, I must say. Next one is Supreme Court guidelines on sexual harassment at workplace. The court defined sexual harassment at workplace as any unwelcome gesture, behavior, words, or advances that are sexual in nature. It shall be the duty of the employer or the superior employer or the other responsible person in workplace or the other any institution to prevent any act of sexual harassment and to provide the procedures for the resolution, settlement of those kind of acts of sexual harassment by taking all steps required and implementing all the steps required in that matter. Next one is Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. Now, this is a very important act which says that it was enacted to provide for more effective protection of the rights of women guaranteed under the Constitution who are victims of violence of any kind of violence occurring within the family. It recognizes 4 types of domestic violence like physical, verbal, and emotional. When I'm saying emotional, I told you earlier also, including not having a child or a male child marrying without consent, and economic, which includes violence related to stridhan, dowry, property, and sexual. When we talk about includes sexual harassment, sexual abuse, or marital rape. Next one comes the Family Courts Act 1984. This act was established with a view to promote conciliation in and secure speedy settlement of disputes related to marriages and family welfare. Their main focus was to conciliation. If the marriage is going to dissolve, they always try to conciliate these things. These act works in that favor. The next one is the Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act 1986. This act prohibits the indecent representation of women through advertisement or in publication, writings, paintings, figures, or in any other manner is prohibited. And if a person is feeling that this kind of thing should not be portrayed, they can go to the court with the help of this act by referring this act. And the last one which I saw, that the Commission of Sati Prevention Act 1987. This act is for the prevention and glorification of Satidam, because Sati was a very, that was a black mark which was practiced in our society, and this has been prevented, and thankfully nothing is happening right now regarding that, and no, this kind of practices are not anymore has been practiced anywhere. So these things I just wanted to focus on. And when you see, I must say everybody should know, whether it is male or female, that if you are a friend also to your female colleague, you should not pass any sexist remark, anything which comes on, and all these kind, whether it is in a friendly manner also, you should not pass. I'm saying this for male and female both. So you should not pass any sexist remark, because recently I have seen one incident happening. It was in a friendly get together, and there somebody was you know, um, sharing some food together. And so one lady was sitting in front of me, and the boy went to that person, and he was like, "You don't need it, madam. You are okay. No, you don't eat it. Otherwise, you will become fat," which is not a right way to convey, because this also comes in a sexist remark. You will see, you will laugh, you will, because you are sitting in a friendly environment. This is not done. If the women want, they can go and they can complain in the ICC, or as well as the state sexual harassment committee also against you. So these kind of small, I just shared one small example, which people, very lightly, they think, it's nothing, she is my friend. You should not use many things at the workplace, because most of the gender-based violence happens unknowingly when you don't know also. So these kind of things has to be taken care. The girl child should be taught from the very early childhood what kind of a touch is bad, what kind of a touch is good, to whom she should talk, to whom she should not, how to wear clothes, not to where you should not expose, where you should expose. Those things she should know. The girl child should know from the early childhood. Then only these incest kind of incidents will not happen. These things, and the denial culture should be stopped. If something happens in your family, you should tell this to your mother, to your father, or anybody which you feel that you can trust. And if somebody is going to denial, you can proceed and tell it to the other organizations also. So these are some basic awareness we all need to, understand, and we all need to spread these kind of awareness, so that we can slowly, but we can minimize the incidences of gender-based violence. So that much I wanted to convey to you all. Thank you very much. I here end up my presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, madam, for your nice talk and nice presentation on
Thank you.
this vision. Participants are requested to, do you have any questions, any queries, you please ask. Any participant, please?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
I'm Padmapriya. I'm doing my research in SRM Institute of Science and Technology. I'm doing my research in gender studies. And at present, I'm writing a paper regarding the work-based violence in gender. So,
sorry, work-based? Work-based?
Violences that are happening in the in gender, we can say.
Okay, okay.
I can say gender-based violence in the workplace.
At workplace, yeah.
So I need some suggestions from you, if possible. In what way I can bring my paper in an effective way? That is, I want to know the less explored research topics that are needed to be given focus.
See, madam, when we are talking about gender-based violence at the workplace, first of all the social sciences research or paper, you should firstly focused on the data and numbers and facts available online. Second, if it is a paper, if you make it, 30 or 40 people, if you can interview,
okay,
that will give you a very good scenario, and that will give you a very good understanding about what is happening. See, there are two ways of writing a paper. One is primary source, secondary source. So you can opt both the one of the things, or as well as both the things. So that's the beauty of social sciences. It gives you a lot of exposure, and gives you a lot of choices. So, but in your paper, if you do the primary research also, you will get the ground reality data also. And if you're assuring these respondents that you will make sure that their confidentiality will not be exposed and all, then people actually are speaking. I have seen, I have been to some fields like where we have been threatened earlier, but later on, they started talking to us on a very, I will say, sensitive issues. So on your paper, I will also say, first, before doing anything, you have to go into the factual data. Those are available. And you can start with your institution by talking to people. You can do it as a case study also by ensuring the confidentiality if they want to, and by quantify the data also. These two things can be done, but I will always say, whenever you are saying anything or writing any paper, you have to be very much focused on the facts and data available. You just cannot write anything, whatever comes in your mind. So first is always good that you should write your introduction, and later you should go to the facts and data available. And then you have to go and discuss your topics with people around who are in that setup, and then you have to analyze. Like, this is my suggestion.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other participants, please? Do you have any query? Okay, madam, there is no any another query.
Yeah.
Now, I request to our librarian of this college, Mr. Gopal Sagar, to propose the vote of thanks of this program. Mr. Gopal Sagar.
Dr. Gaikwad, sir, I am audible.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, honorable dignitaries, eminent speakers, respected principal, sir, and dear participants. On behalf of MSP Mandals, Arts, Commerce, and Science College, Kille Darur, and organizing committee, myself, Gopal Sagar, librarian of this college, to take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks on one-day international interdisciplinary webinar on recent trends in gender studies. I express my deep regards and gratitude Honorable Sri Prakash Dada Solanke, MLA and President Marathwada Shikshan Prasarak Mandal, Aurangabad, Honorable Sri Satish Babu Chauhan, MLC and Secretary of Marathwada Shikshan Prasarak Mandal, Aurangabad, Honorable Sri Jaising Bhaiya Solanki, Chief Member, College Development Committee and Executive Member of MSP Mandal, Aurangabad, and all Honorable College Development Committee members for always encourage us and providing opportunity to organize such events. I propose vote of thanks towards an inaugurator of this function, Professor Dr. Mahsa Moshfegyan, Professor Salahdin University, Erbil, Kurdestan, Iraq, who spared the time of her busy schedule and enlightened us with the extremely relevant address. I would like further extend thanks of Professor Dr. Suresh Main, Professor Mumbai School of Economics and Public Policy, University of Mumbai, to deliver informative and fruitful session with us. Also, I would like to express my vote of thanks Ms. Neha Mishra, Head Department of Sociology, Government College Daman, UT of Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Daman Diu, to guiding us with suitable examples on today's webinar topic. I would like specially thanks our principal, Professor Dr. Dept Bharti sir, for guiding support to give confidence for organizing such events. My deep sense of appreciation thanks to all the participants who choose to be live with us and attend the webinar with great enthusiasm and made it a successful event. Last but surely not the least, I thank Mr. Dr. Ananta Gade sir for all the technical support and for helping us to webcast the webinar through YouTube channel. Once again, I thank you all for being with us. Thank you. Dr. Gaikwad sir.